I've come up with a way to totally eradicate this whole idea of rejection in sales. If it's over at hello, how the heck are you going to succeed in selling? You've got to rise above that and change your mindset.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Stump The Guru Show. It's Ari Galper here with Trust-Based Selling. Welcome to our new podcast listeners and those who listen every time we launch an episode. And for those who don't know what we do, we, for the last 2 decades, have specialized in helping business owners in low volume, high margin businesses collapse sales cycles, build trust faster, think differently about the process. And this is a show where people jump on live. If they're around, ask me a question anytime they like during the show. If you have a question for me, just go to stumptheguru.com and it'll forward to you inside the show here, and Steve will let you in. So if you don't know much about my work, I've got multiple books. You can get a free copy at thetrustbook.com. We can mail it to you to learn more about what we do. We have AI, where I've kind of cloned my digital mind. People are using that now around the clock, as we see every single day, which is great. All information about what we do is at arigalper.com to learn more about what we do. But look, there's a chance to really talk about trust in business today, where things are going. I usually have a theme that I talk about, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then we see who's on live. If no one's here, no problem. I've always got Sam with me, my business partner. We talk about these topics, share insights from being the ground level every day, talking to live clients, business owners, CEOs all the time, literally every day. So we're at the cold face of what's happening out there. And the biggest shift, obviously, is moving away from the act of selling itself to the act of trust as a separate skill set. And one of my latest books, and I'll show it to you here, called The Rise of AI, The Decline of Trust, is all about that. How you survive in this the day and age of AI will be from your ability to learn how to build trust with other human beings from a trust perspective and a doctor perspective, different than relationship building. So those are some of the key big ideas of what's happening. But the theme for today is about avoiding what I call sales triggers. Sales triggers are what can happen unconsciously inside of your initial dialogue with a new opportunity that can create what I call the wall to go up, pressure to go up in the conversation, where they see you as having an agenda to move them along a path towards a sale. And it's very, very subtle. It's not overt. It's not aggressive. But these are things you have to be aware of to not have the perception of you change from someone they can trust to someone they cannot trust. And I'll list a few of those things out right now. One is being very careful to not assume anything they're telling you necessarily is the full picture. Meaning, what a lot of experts do is when they hear someone describe their problem to them, they've heard the problem so many times, their instinct is to immediately solve it in the back of their mind and go, yeah, we can do that for you. We can solve that for you. And then maybe ask a couple questions, stop the diagnosis process, and go right into, let me show you how I work. Sometimes that means owning the problem too early. It can happen very unconsciously when someone describes their situation to you and you qualify them quickly. Your system can go, yep, we can help this person. So the trigger is to not attempt to solve the problem, because they can sense that from you, but instead unpack and diagnose the problem going down the iceberg with our process that we teach called the one call sale. The other thing to be aware of with the trigger is to not attempt, this is going to be hard, to create chemistry with the other person with the goal for them to like you, because they know it's often fake. Even though your heart is coming from the right place in the process, they don't know you yet. So they can't assess you at this time. And a lot of us have been taught to believe that our goal is to build a relationship with someone pre-sale. And the challenge with that is real relationships take a lot of time to build, to create trust. And we don't have a lot of time to build with somebody in one first meeting, a relationship with them. So instead, the idea here is to build a relationship with someone after they're a client, not before they're a client. Before they're a client is where you're only building trust with them, which is separate from relationship building. It's a different concept to think about. And so to do that, you have to stop attempting to overlay social norms on the conversation to create chit chat, become their friend, build rapport, try and create chemistry. You know what I'm talking about. How you hear about us today? Here's the goal today. Love your jacket. All that stuff that they know has an agenda behind it. Instead, remove that and just be the doctor with empathy and bedside manner, and really peel the onion back around their problem and go deep down that level with them where they can feel from you that you understand their world, because the decision to hire you is not based upon your services. They know what you do. It's not a mystery. We're in a commoditized economy. It's based on their ability to feel that you understand their world more than anybody else, which requires you to be patient, be present, listen, not make assumptions, which is the opposite of what we're taught to do in the world of selling. Most folks out there who still teach and train selling are focused on a lot of traditional aspects around closing, answering objections, becoming their best friend, relationship building, over delivering on value, which is the worst thing to do pre-sale because value has been commoditized. And so our work is very contrarian, and it's very much based on pure trust only, not selling itself. And that's the big message today, is if you're still attempting in the back of your mind to move somebody forward down your process in a way where they feel that from you, it's over at hello. So beware of your own sales triggers that are subconscious from your old conditioning. And if you want to learn more about this, I've got one of my latest books, especially the one called Trust in a Split Second. You get a free copy at thetrustbook.com. We'll mail that to you. And then maybe have a chat with you if you like along the process there. So that's a bit of our philosophy and some of the triggers to be careful of. And then we'll open the show up from here and see if anyone's around. If not, we'll bring Sam in and you and I can riff off the back of this, because a lot of folks listen to this and helps them lock in their mindset deeper the more they hear us talk about it. See if anyone back there for us today?
All righty. It looks like there's a few struggling, so let's bring Sam on. There's nobody with cameras or mics up, so we're going to bring in Sam. Hey, Sam, what's happening, brother? How are you?
Hey, Steve, I'm good. How are you?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Almost next season, we got the arms. We always got to have the arms. And a terribly frightening thing, me and Ari are wearing the same combination of jacket and shirt, so I'm going to burn this afterwards, because when we become the same, that is terrifying for the rest of the world. So
that's it. Well, you're just missing your you're just missing your guitar, Steve. That's all.
Yeah, and Sam is now back from a trip from Italy, so he's pretty chilled out, visiting his Italian history and background. And so, Sam, you probably picked up what I just talked about. I know you're back in the game again, back talking to clients. And what's your take on all this?
Yeah, Ariel, I love what you said. I mean, it's the basics, and sometimes we forget the basics, but you're right. There's so many things that traditional salespeople do that trigger rejection. And the sad part is that they don't always know they're doing it. So highlighting these things, at a basic level, at a fundamental level, are essential. So I agree with everything you said. The other one that I think is that I notice a lot, and I just came back from a conference, and this is the other trigger that people have in the conversations, and is that salespeople are very, very overly enthusiastic with their solution, and they're in love with their solution. And when they meet a prospect, they can't help but just blurb out what they do and their passion for it. And rightly so. I mean, what they do, they love. They've obviously put a lot of time and effort into it. But what they failed to realize is that the prospect that they've met doesn't know them. They're brand new. And, you're making an assumption that they have a problem that you can solve. And to go one step further, sometimes when I meet someone that's very enthusiastic about their product, and I say to them, well, what actual problem do you solve? And they find it hard to articulate because they're so caught up in their product offering or their service with the assumption that everybody loves it just as much as they do. And they really miss the boat on that. I mean, what are your thoughts around that?
It's so true. I think what you're talking about is the concept of being solution-centric versus problem-centric. And it is true that we are in love with what we do. Of course, we should be. We're passionate about what we do. We want to help people, and we can't help but to want to share that with others to show them what we can do. And the hardest part in this process is it's okay to do that, but not prematurely, to do it before you haven't first gone inside their world, unpacked the situation, and asked the key questions around, is this a priority for you to solve? What's the impact here? You got to have the patience for this, because it's like being the pharmacist before the doctor, right? Dispensing the medicine before the problem is diagnosed, because oftentimes new potential clients can't articulate in full their own problem. If they can't articulate it, they can't own it, and they won't solve it. So you're right. It's a lot about holding back on the solution until it's the right time.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard you said before, which I think is a perfect, perfect way to think, is that fall out of love with your solution and fall in love with their problem. Be the expert in their problem, not the solution. And, I think at a deep human level, trust is developed when people know that you understand them, and you've actually taken the time to understand their real problem, the core of what's going on. And they've sort of exposed themselves a little bit in that regard. Then if you provide a solution, it's a natural match. There should be limited resistance, So I love what you said about fall in love with their problem.
Well, you also said the word resistance. And resistance comes from us attempting to make assumptions about the extent of their problem. And when we do that, we shortcut the ability to peel back the onion with them and really understand at a deep emotional level what their challenges are. Now, sure, they're business people, and so are we, but we have to be comfortable with being able to unpack their situation in a much deeper way than they can on their own. And that's where the resonance comes from. When I say resonance, that means connection. And people say things like, well, I resonate with your message, Ari. You understand me. And more importantly, you've helped me see things I can't see on my own. That means it's not about the solution, it's about the problem and diagnosis. So you have a bit of a lag there on your sound, on your, I'm not sure why your video, Sam, but keep going, and we'll go from there, okay?
Yeah, I've noticed that. I don't know if it's my end. I don't know what's going on, but
Sure.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, those things are, consistent with the philosophy you've been talking about, and that becomes a little bit evident too, that when you do have a conversation and someone says, well, I've identified what their problem is. Okay, great. And then they say, but there's no level of urgency. That's the common thing I hear with people, is that, look, I've been able to identify their problem, and that's great, but there just seem to be no speed. There's no urgency wanting to solve it, and and that's common too. So what are your thoughts around that?
It's about helping them make it a priority in their own mind as to whether they want to actually address the problem itself. See, even though you had a lead, you have a call with them, and they say, we're looking for X solution. That doesn't mean they want to solve their problem. That just means they're looking around for solutions. It's a very different concept. So the funny thing is, human nature is not to commit to taking action to solve the problem. Human nature is to look for solutions. It's much easier to do that. But to commit and own it and take responsibility for it and write a check for it is a whole different story. And this is the part that most people in selling miss, because they don't know how to help the other person make the commitment to make the decision. Now, that is made by allowing them to trust you enough to help them remove the resistance to make that decision. Hence, our one-call sales system we developed that removes all resistance to do this. And that's a very deep layer to understand, is that we're now, and I call a trust recession, and more importantly, what I call a commoditized economy, where we are being shopped by people. They are shopping, looking for solutions. They're not shopping to talk about their problems. Okay, so we, as the provider, the doctor in the process have to start with the problems at a deep level, not the solution. Even though they want the solutions, we have to redirect them what's in a way it's better for them. We can't allow the patient to write their prescription for their own medicine because we're the experts and they're not their problem. And that's the whole shift in the positioning from peer to peer to authority to peer.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing I've heard you say in the past, which I think is so relevant, is that when you help them see what they can't see, in other words, when you shed light on their problem and the impact and the risks and some of the concerns, then that shifts the conversation as well. Because a lot of people tend to trivialize their problem. It's no big deal. But, you being the specialist, the doctor-patient model, being someone who really cares, you're saying to them, look, you might think that that's a little problem, but in my experience, are you aware that these sort of things can happen? Are you considered the fact that this could be a likely impact? Have you given thought to these things? And once you highlight from your experience, because you're the expert in the problem, not the solution, then all of a sudden they have a greater awareness of what's really going on. It's not possibly, well, it may not be a little problem. It could be a bigger problem they expect. And then I think that shows a little bit more respect, and they trust you because you're not trying to sell anything. You're just trying to explain that this is a serious problem and I care for you.
Look, to get the trust, and you said the word, they have to respect you. Respect is what leads to trust, and respect comes from your ability to help them articulate their world in more clarity than they can on their own. Because the real value in that first conversation with them is the clarity on their own situation, not the value of your solution. That's why one of our key questions or key areas that we teach is called COI, cost of inaction, where you help them see what the impact is and the risk is to not solving the issue, where you reverse engineer the problem and they begin to understand how it's impacting their team, the loss of market share, the loss of sales, by not solving it, because they themselves will not go there on their own, because us humans we're conditioned to focus on the gains and the wins, not the losses. But the reality is you have to look at the impact and the risk and losses of the problem to justify solving it. Otherwise, you spend your whole time shopping for solutions and never making a decision. Otherwise, you go with the cheapest one. You're not really looking at it from the problem perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that with a lot of businesses, they might have a particular problem of such, but no one's really ever spent the time to dissect that with them and say, look, let's work out what this problem is actually costing you from a bottom line perspective, right? I mean, all businesses are driven by dollars and cents. And, they might they might put up with, I don't know, unproductive employees, or they could be losing sales opportunities, or they could have a process that doesn't work. And to them, it's, it's something we want to address. But when you unpack that and you say, look, every opportunity is X, or all the time you spend managing employee costs you X. And when you compound that on a weekly basis or monthly basis, often when I do that with people, it's a big number. And they're like, it's a big wake up call. And they think, geez, I didn't realize so much of my bottom line is disappearing because of this process. And look, often, their attention is gained because they realize that there's a tangible effect. And then often, your solution is usually a fraction of what they're losing. So it makes sense. I mean, it's the quantifying of the losses.
That's an important concept, because most business owners who have a sales team or sell themselves never go there with their potential leads. They just stick with the proposal, the quote, the plan, the demo, the solution. They default back to their world.
Yeah.
And they miss all the trust and respect, and they still are perceived as selling. That's why it's so important to shift the conversation to their world and stay in there as long as you can. In fact, interesting enough, I just had a new client who goes on site to visit with potential leads. Old school, but I love it. And I said to him, what do you bring with you when you meet with these people to meet them for their first time? He said, I bring my laptop, I bring a contract, I bring a brochure, I bring bag. I said, here's what I want you to do from now on. I want you to leave everything in the car. I want you to walk in hands-free, nothing in your hands, okay? Because when you walk with things in your hands, holding things, and they haven't met you yet, what are they thinking? They're thinking, what's in the bag? What's he going to pull out? What's the rabbit in the hat? What's he going to sell me today? You have to walk in hands-free and sit down and say, let's first discuss. First of all, they're going to say to themselves, well, where's the stuff? This is not what I expected, which is the whole point. And then you can sit down and say, I want to first discuss your challenge. Let's see where it's going. And then if there is a challenge I feel that is fixable, we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Then you can go out to the car if you want and get what you need. But you don't come in with that image of you're about to present and sell to somebody without first diagnosing their problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I remember you talking to me about that in the early days, and that makes such a difference. It's the same with the traditional just calling somebody, like if you call someone and you say, hi, my name is, I'm from, and I do this, straight away people are checked out. But, when you call someone and they're, depending on your languaging, where they're not sure who you are, then that has their attention. But more because you could be a customer, you could be a supplier, you could be someone with a compliance team, you could be some kind of authority. So even just the introduction call that people do, a cold call, whatever you want to call, then even that, if it's approached the wrong way and people see the stereotypical behaviors, they're checked out as well. So it applies in that sort of scenario too.
And even if they already know you met with them, we're famous for flipping the word follow-up to never use that word ever again. It's the worst word ever used in the sales business. Instead, use the word feedback, because feedback's going backwards, right? Not forwards. Forward creates momentum. Feedback removes resistance. So you would use the word, I'm just giving you a call to see if you have any feedback on our proposal, feedback on our last meeting, right? These are language terms that we've replaced with trust-based languaging that eliminates that perception, that resistance. I'm part of a group that has sales teams of thousands of people, and they're all out there following up, chasing people, protecting people. They're all still doing the mistakes they're unaware of because they're conditioning. Now they're still selling and making money, but the losses are triple the gains.
Yeah.
And so talking to VP sales, I helped him realize that. He was in a state of shock when he realized small tweaks in themselves could make a huge difference.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason for that, Ari, is that people do get a bit caught up in the volume game, right? If they lose an opportunity, it's like, oh, that's all right, there's more coming. And they end up sort of doing a lot of effort and chasing and filtering. And look, at the end of the day, that's a lot of work. And rather than think to yourself, well, I've lost one, there's more to come, and just go out there and just hit the streets more and do more calls and just more activity, it's wise to probably rethink that and think, well, if I've got qualified people and if I just close the ones or close that gap, which is the ones I'm losing, if you do that effectively, you can virtually double your business just by maximizing the opportunities you're losing now. And if you do that, no more volume, no more lead gen, no more beating the streets, it's in your own backyard. The massive opportunity that's there just by getting this one skill right can change your life.
Yeah, you're talking about shifting from the numbers game to conversion as the main aspect of the business. And that's from the sales funnel concept to the sales cylinder concept that we talk about. Where businesses need to stop trying to pour more leads at the top of the funnel, spend all their time wasted qualifying, chasing, following up. What if they only focus on trust conversion only in a cylinder model? Would eliminate so much wasted advertising dollars, the half you don't know where it goes, and all those leads who you end up chasing who don't commit. It's interesting how so many companies manage their sales team on a pipeline concept where they look at how much in the pipeline, they feel so confident on how much they can make if they close everything. It turns out that conversion is a small percentage of that, but it somehow makes them feel good to see more leads in the pipeline. But I don't know. I don't feel so good with things in the pipeline that don't convert. I prefer to work only on conversion, lower the pipeline numbers, and convert higher. And that takes a long time to dislodge from people's minds because they're so wired to look for what's possible and not what the reality is they could be making.
Yeah, it's all about being more effective with your energy and your time, and also too, when you spend more time with the one client and you invest a lot of effort into building trust, it's a lot more satisfying. It's a lot more human, and your genuine care factor just comes across, and that itself is a shift with the many prospects. They think, wow, this guy actually really cares, or this lady cares, and that's a differentiator, because they're judging you on your approach, because that's all they have at the start. I mean, you're one of many. They're probably thinking, well, this guy's going to put on the dog and pony show. But if they see that your approach is totally different, you have the things that we talked about, emphasize on understanding their problem, looking at the impact, helping them see what they can't see, that in their mind says to themselves, this guy is totally different to what I expected.
Yeah.
I think we've got something here that we need to assess and talk about, because I trust him.
Just to kind of end the conversation here, I just got off a podcast interview, and I told the podcaster that in this day and age, the only way you're going to differentiate yourself over anybody else is your ability not to sell, but to build trust instead. And I think that's what the summary of today's conversation is. What you have to ask yourself, what can I do to let go of my conditioning I've been taught to do for years, to attempt to flex, deliver value, engage in a sales process that creates a relationship pre-sale, and shift to this sort of pure truth model where it's a doctor-patient conversation with empathy and bedside manner, but having a framework around that for the other person to say to themselves, wow, this person is the only one who's not tried to sell me anything. And by the irony of the whole thing is letting go of the sale itself creates more sales. I know it's hard to imagine that. Once you're in our world and you absorb our concept, especially if you read our book, Trust in a Split Second, you understand why that happens. So thank you, Sam, for your insights. It's been great. You've triggered me to think of new ideas, and you yourself are really understanding more about what we're doing with more clarity. I think people hearing this will hopefully get a flash of, that makes sense. He's right. I got to see myself differently. So any last thoughts?
No, I think what you said nailed it. Just work out ways to decondition yourself from the stereotypical. And look, people review this 30 minutes. That's enough, right? Just go through that and put one thing into place, and I guarantee you it'll shift your world. And then there's more. I agree.
If it's your first time listening to this show, go back to the first episode, listen to every single one, and if it doesn't change your life, let us know. So on that note, you can get my new book at thetrustbook.com. We'll mail it to you, put a stamp on it, and get it to you as soon as possible. If you don't know about what else we do, go to arigalper.com, and you'll see that we have multiple entry points to work with us, from consulting to training to AI, where you can access my digital mind to solve almost any challenge you have around trust and selling, and more than that, that's coming out soon. So stay in touch, reach out. We're here to help you. We'll say goodbye for now. Thank you.
See you, Ari. Bye-bye.
I've come up with a way to totally eradicate this whole idea of rejection in sales. If it's over at hello, how the heck are you going to succeed in selling? You've got to rise above that and change your mindset.